There's far too much misinformation on sell-through rate, especially on eBay, and it's costing a lot of people money because of what is being spread around that honestly isn't true. Hey, it's Don. Today I wanted to talk about sell-through rate specifically on eBay because I hear a ton of things, a ton of misinformation on it, and I usually hear about it when someone was taking advice from someone else and they're asking for my help. And that's usually what happens. And then I see that they've given them a ton of bad information and bad advice based on limited knowledge and limited experience in this industry. That's the biggest factor. Now, before we go any farther, the biggest, most important thing to realize with sell-through rate is that it only matters in very specific categories only. It doesn't matter in a ton of categories in pretty much any realistic way whatsoever. A big difference in why it would matter in one category versus another. If you sell, let's say, new video games, and you're investing set amount of money into those new video games, you want to be able to get a return out of them, a set return. And with like new video games, they do have a verifiable, routine, repeat sell-through rate that can help you determine whether the value is there to buy the item. Again, it'll come down to what the profit margins are. If there's no money to be made, it doesn't matter what something's going to sell for or even what the sell-through rate is. Like with vintage collectibles, for example. There may only be one or two of something that shows up every 3 years, which is the search time you can research an item price on eBay. You can only go back 3 years on Terapeak. So how are you going to determine a sell-through rate when only 3 have shown up? There's none available right now. Well, you can say it's 100%, but with a high dollar item in, say a toy that only 3 showed up, a Shogun Warrior or something, that toy, there may only be 2 or 3 people on the entire planet that could afford to buy a $3,000-$4,000 toy. So the sell-through rate may have hit rock bottom after the first 3 sold. It's just the way it works with stuff like that. A $10,000 coin, a $100,000 comic book. There are very few people that would sink $100,000 into it. So with the high dollar items like that, the sell-through rate, in my personal opinion, and from what I've seen everywhere else, is that they would be almost meaningless. All what matters is that there's somebody out there that would be willing to pay what you're asking for it, regardless of any other factors. So that's a huge difference. A rare record is the same thing. A Beatles album that only shows up once every 4 or 5 years, a promo, an EP, or some scarcity with a Rolling Stones picture sleeve for 45 that there's only a couple known copies of. It doesn't have to be worth a fortune to be in that same ballpark. Things that we sell, no other example has shown up on eBay before. And that's just not me. That's tens of thousands of other sellers sell things that there may only be one known example to show up. That doesn't mean there's not other ones of them out there. So you can't go by one method fits all for sell-through rate. Now, I personally use sell-through rate if I'm going to sell NOS or retail arbitrage for Amazon, because you have to know. Ranking's obviously something you'd look at on Amazon, but the sell-through rate is verifiably, at least there's enough information out there to get a good understanding of where the sell-through rate is on something like that. On eBay, it's very hard. If let's say there's 50 items that have sold on an item on eBay, sold in the last 3 years, and there's, say, 10 of them up right now, how do you figure out a valid sell-through rate for those items? The 50 that sold could have all sold within a 3 or 4 day time span because someone out for the first time in their lives realized something is out there and they bought it. So the sell-through rate isn't, a verifiable, proven way to calculate based on those metrics you would add to figure out the calculations. It can't be done where it's meaningful to tell you much other than that. Now, take a t-shirt, for example. This one or any one for that matter. A t-shirt has like a top market value of around $20 to $24 is usually what you see something like what I'm wearing now for. Obviously, there's $40, $50 t-shirts. But if you're trying to sell a t-shirt in a flooded category, you have to know how the sell-through rate is on that t-shirt, because if it's a national brand, there could be, 100,000 of them made, and you have to compete with that. And if the sell-through rate, because there's so many of them out there, is 20%, is it worth holding on and investing in a t-shirt that you may only make $5 or $6 for? So yes, the sell-through rate does matter depending on what you sell. Now, people send me videos all the time, and no disrespect to anybody or anything else like that, but I get videos from my patrons and YouTube members and stuff, post video links and stuff, or ask me personally on stuff like that. Take a look at this. What do you think about this opinion on it? And usually the folks giving the bad advice are the folks that have been into it for a short period of time and only have sold whatever they run into, or tennis shoes or something very, very specific. And for what they sell, the sell-through rate means everything. And I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not that way for items that they've never touched or items that other folks don't deal in routinely. That's the biggest factor you've got to think about. Even if you can figure out a sell-through rate on a rare or unique item, say over a 3-year time span, because that's what you would be able to use. So you figured out the sell-through rate at this point, or at least what you assume the sell-through rate is based on, what's up. I've had people tell me, well, you just do it for a year based on what's current on eBay, and you do it for a year of Terapeak data, and then you multiply that times 3, and it gives you a 3-year average, and you use those numbers for it. Well, that's not actually how it would work either, because you don't know how long the items that are currently active have been on because of relists and things like that, so you can't compare. Another aspect on that, which is huge, is that every reseller is different. You may not know how to properly identify an item, and one person may sell 5 while you've had one up for the entire length. They've been listing those and routinely selling those, but yours isn't selling. You could have a bad price. You could have terrible photos. You could have a complete mis-ID on what you're selling. You could have it in the wrong category. You could have bad feedback. That doesn't mean that the sell-through rate is bad because yours ain't selling or there's something screwy going on. There could be other factors that would affect it. And that would go for, categories where sell-through rate does matter, like NOS games or retail arbitrage items. So there's a lot of different factors, more so in vintage and collectibles, even comic books, especially because they flow with the tide almost. Prices go up and prices go down. Now, the best aspect on this is there is a way to avoid a lot of the sell-through rate issues, where 5 or 10% sell-through rate of your entire store can make you 6 digits, $100,000 plus. And I'm going to show you the math so you can see without a doubt, and I'm going to give you real examples in just a second here to explain it, because I hear tons of people telling me it doesn't work that way, it doesn't work like this, 5% is terrible. Even 0.5%, depending on one key factor, quantity, can make you millions of dollars. 0.5% sell-through rate can make you $1 million a year, depending on quantity, profit margins, and many other factors. Whether you can get enough merchandise to flip that, that's another aspect. If you can't get enough quantity to keep up the sales, it doesn't matter either. So let's dive in right now and show you with math so you can see for your own eyes how this breaks down and really truly works. Don't take someone else's word for it. You can actually look at the math. You can get a calculator and do it yourself. So I just hopped into my store here. Now I just want to give some numbers to give you an idea on volume comparatively, to give you the information to show you that a 5% sale of either items or value in your store overall a year is not some lowball number for most all of you out there. 10%. Large number of things we sell at least 1 out of 10 on average. So we're going to give you some numbers based on my live current store numbers. So I've got 39,809 listings, and I have $1,765,635 worth of listed value in my store. Overall, 43,874 individual items. Obviously, some of my listings are multiple item listings. So these are the numbers. I'll just base it off just to give you some examples. Like what I said earlier, 40%, 50% sell-through rate is in no way needed for vintage and collectible items, or even when you have volume in your store. Volume outweighs things. And again, as I said, selling vintage and oddball collectibles, there is no valid sell-through rate for 95% of what I sell. And if someone comes up with one, it's always some lowball, horrendously awful offer. Another thing to think about too is some of the items we sell, other folks may have had the same item listed for, a year or two. Their photo may be terrible, the title may be terrible, they may be missing some key factor that would sell the item. Again, there's so many other factors. The feedback someone has could affect why they can't sell it, but you may be able to. So these are all factors that play. Again, let's look at these numbers and do some math. So again, I've got 39,809 items in my store, and I want to figure out 10% of that. So let's say I sold 10% of my store, which is an extremely easy number to hit with the quantity of items that we have. To figure out 10%, you have to get rid of the percentage sign. You move the decimal over twice, so we've got 0.10 is how you figure out 10% of 39,809 items. So I sold 3,981 items basically. We'll round up to 81. So now I'm going to take that 3,981 and multiply it times my average sale price of my items in my store. My average sale price of items in my store is $28.60. Now, to figure out your average price of selling items, you add up all the items that you sold, all the value. So if you ended up selling $20,000 worth of items, you would divide that by the number of items that you sold, and that will give you the average item price. Now, if I use these numbers and I multiply 3,981 by $28.60, I get $113,853 for the year. These are yearly numbers. We're just breaking them down just to give you an idea. Now, 10% is actually pretty low for stores. And again, the amount per item could change. So I could be selling $34.50 for an entire year as my average, and that would change the yearly number to $137,344.50. Now, let's look at, say, 15% sell-through rate, which is still low for most stores, even stores with huge volumes like me. So I've changed the number to 15% of the total number of listings I have. Again, very low percentage of sales. Easily done if you're selling the right items. Again, I've got 39,809 items active in my store. 15% of that is 5,971 sales. That would be items that I sold for the year. And we'll keep the $34.50 because that's a pretty average per item sales price. And that gives us $205,999 for the year. Again, that's not a super crazy number at all. The volume overtakes most anything else. It's easy stuff to get up what I sell. You don't have to sell what I sell. You don't have to even do volume if that's not what you want. But for me, I can't get the high dollar items to, that we're going to flip immediately to get me that return. I can't get the sell-through rate that I want on every item, so I can outweigh that with selling volume. 5-10% of volume can make you millions of dollars depending on how much you have up. Now keep in mind, I have many stores. I sell on multiple platforms. The numbers don't have to be a 50% sell-through rate. They don't have to be a 70% sell-through rate. 5 or 10% can make you 6 digits, $100,000 a year. I'm giving you $34.50 as my average selling item price. It could be $60 for you, and you would only have to sell half of what I've just stated to still make decent numbers. Sell-through rate is in no way an end-all thing. There is no one way or no way with sell-through rate. Sell-through rate on a ton of items is meaningless if you've got the right keyword, the right price, the right photo. You know how to describe it. You know the aspects. You know who your customers are. There are so many other factors involved, and far too many people only see it because they sell one item, and that one or two item that they're selling is all that matters to them. Sell-through rate only matters based on the category you're selling in. And even a low ball sell-through rate, as I just showed you, of 5, 10, 15%, can still make you a lot of money. So don't listen to folks when they tell you that you have to have a said sell-through rate, that anything below 50% is meaningless, because the numbers just don't add up when they tell you that. A small percentage can make you a lot of money if you're dealing in volume. We buy bulk. Bulk is the way to go. Bulk outweighs everything because I can sell volume, I get a decent return on my investment, and we can make big bucks selling items with lower sell-through rates. Well, there we have it. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
America's classic thrillers come to life. The Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries. An adventure into suspense.
There's got to be a way out of here. You used to go with her? Forget that.
Oh, Professor, do ghosts leave footprints?
The adventures of America's favorite young detectives come to television.
Follow that ghost.
The Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries.